Hi, I'm Ozzy from Three Monkey Solderless, where you could get the screw-on solderless cable systems for your pedal board, both quarter-inch and DC. It's formable. The cable is proprietary, sounds great. But today, what I wanted to show for you guys and kind of mess around with is a continuation of our project to get the sound. And I've been working on another one of these Pedalfires, and here it is right here. And I think this kind of represents the most advanced one in that regard, to go after the sound. And what we have is a transformer output version, and it's a clone of my SmallBox 50 watter that everybody seems to like the tone of, and we're calling it the SmallBox-3 tubes. Now, what it is basically a clone of that amplifier in terms of its circuit and voltages and all that, and is coupled to the whatever you're going to run it into, be it the front end of another Marshall, or in this case, our project with the Two Notes rig and some new settings I've been coming up with. But it has a typical Plexi complement of controls. You have your presence, and it's a real presence. The transformer is actually feeding a negative feedback circuit into an actual phase inverter, a la that you would find exactly the same kind in a Marshall. The bass, middle, and treble controls that you would find in the circuits from, the 12,000 series all the way up into the, early 70s. You have your volume 1 and volume 2, okay? You have your two inputs for volume 1 and volume 2, and you have up here a switch so you can jump the two together. You could also use a Y cord if you wanted to do that as well. So what I've been working on as well along with this are some impulse responses for the Two Notes system. We'll talk a little bit more about those, but they're trying to simulate that sunset sound that we're getting with the aux. So let's just go downstairs and we'll get a close-up of the pedal board, the Two Notes pedal board, and let's see how it sounds. Okay, so we had to redo the video. There was actually a setting that was triggered on the mixer board that kind of messed everything up. So I took the other video down after listening to it. Didn't get a chance to listen to it before it went up, and I was like, man, that doesn't sound right. So we're putting this one up, and this one, well, hopefully I'm not making the same mistake again. So anyway, we've got the Pedalfire up on the board. And as you can see, we've got the standard Marshall controls that you would find like on a Plexi. It has presence, bass, middle, treble, volume, and volume. A jump switch, the two inputs, the output, the transformer, output transformer as well as power transformer. And the reason for that is being, I guess I should go through explaining it all again, is I wanted to make something that was really an accurate replica or an accurate representation of my 50-watt small box Marshall that's up in the submarine studio. And what I figured I would have to do is I would have to create a global negative feedback system for it, that surrounds the phase inverter like you would find on a Plexi Marshall. So I figured the best way to do that would be to use, obviously, an output transformer. So I found one that would work for this situation. And it actually produces or presents a negative feedback to the phase inverter, and has, an accurate presence control. So it's really like, exactly the same thing as you would find on a Plexi, a 5K pot with a 0.1 and a feedback resistor going to the tail of the cathode. And I think that's important in getting the sound of the Plexi right. We also have the cathode follower with the typical Plexi tone stack that you would have found from that time, the .02s, the 470 puff treble cap, and a 33K slope resistor. And then we have V1, which is composed of A and B, the volume 1 and volume 2 channels. Volume 1 being the bright channel and volume 2 being the normal channel, with separate inputs for each one. But the cool thing is when you plug into the input for, or rather the in for volume 1 or channel 1, the bright channel, you can use this right here to jump in the second channel. And I had it set on jump for that setting. So I could kind of show you the difference there. Right? And now I'll switch it back this way. All right, I'm gonna put this back in. Back it off a little bit. All right, and the settings on the amp, I think you could probably see them from there, but presence is almost all the way up. Bass is at about 9 o'clock. The middle and treble are all the way up. The volume 1 is gagged out too. And volume 2 is at about, say, 1:32 o'clock. And then the signal chain, obviously, we're leaving this unit, the Pedalfire SmallBox-3, and going into the Two Notes. And I did use, we're only going to use this one particular IR for this one. And what I did was I substituted out what was before the Bright Celestion from the Celestion IR pack for what they call the Fat Celestion. So that's one cabinet is the Fat Celestion, and the other cabinet is that blended IR of the JBL D120 from Redwires with it was a 57 and then a 421 combined in the Two Notes IR blend software to create one particular impulse response. Those two are, were put into the Two Notes studio software, and they were mixed 50-50. I did do some EQing for this particular, let's say, setup for this particular impulse response or this setting on the Two Notes. And what it was is I peaked out the 8K. There was some guys talking about the treble response, that it needed more presence, and I totally agreed. I mean, there was some mess up with the low end on the way that it was hooked up to the mixer, that they were actually out of phase with each other, which was causing a lot of problems. So the two channels. So I took note of that and up to the 8K quite a bit. So you have, that kind of really kind of upper end bite that would, I think, is, more simulating of the 500 series mic preamps, as well as when you heavily compress it with the 1176 compressors. All right, so that we're calling Sunset Sound 6. The rest of the chain, we've got a Two Notes Mimic, but that wasn't on. The harmonizer, which wasn't on. The time factor, which I just have set for a slap, so I'll turn that on and off, right? Right, and then the plate is the guitar plate stock from the Eventide. I'll turn that off too, right? Right? Actually, I don't think he had a slap on that. Right? Yeah, put on a little bit of the tape echo on there. So I think we're getting, a little bit closer than we were with the other video. There were problems, but I think the impulse response in this case is a little bit closer. And I wanted to thank some of the guys that chimed in, and some people emailed me and was like, "What's up with that clip? It doesn't sound right." So I was like, "Oh, let me listen to it." Really good procedure for putting something up and not listening to it. And I was like, "Man, that doesn't sound right." So went back, looked at everything, and I did find a problem. I recorded it directly into this whole rig directly into my DAW, which is just a simple 2-note Scarlett, and did a couple of little EQ things. So I was like, man, that does not sound at all like it going through to the camera. So I better look at the settings again. So looked at them, found an issue. So anyway, yeah, that's where we're at with the small box today. So any comments I would appreciate regarding what could be done differently, or what you'd like to see done with the small box to place it in a different situation. I'm going to look for, let's say, maybe even doing a different reverb, because I'd like to get the reverb panned hard to one side and be more of a chamber as opposed to a plate. And the space, I'm not really in love with anything other than the plate on it. I'd also like to put some of the floor effects, like, you know, the echo and maybe a boost in front of the unit as opposed to afterwards. And I'm even toying around with getting another impulse response pedal. There's one that I saw on that's come out recently. It's the Omni, and it's kind of intriguing. So I'd like to see that. And I was thinking about using 2 impulse response pedals anyway, so that way I could do a true like stereo rig, where I could have, you know, one set of you know, for the dry sound and the other one going strictly for wet, and just see how the Two Notes compares to the Omni. I can load the same impulse response into the two and see what happens. So anyway, I think that's good for now. Once again, sorry for the other vid taking it down, but putting this one back up. And thanks for watching, and we'll be back real soon.